Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati.
Hey there, friends, and welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro, where we are cooking it up hot and fresh. This is single source Bible study that is responsibly handled and locally sourced. Today we're looking at verses 70 and 71 in Psalm 119. Before we get there today, let me just remind you that Having Been Led, a 30-day devotional, is out in print. It is on the Kindle, and it's been on the Kindle since the first of the month, but it's now out as a paperback if you'd like to get a copy for yourself. And this can be used any time of the year. It's a good 30-day Bible study. I hope that you'll check out Having Been Led, a 30-day devotional based on the Church Covenant of John Newton Brown. We're looking today at verses 70 and 71, and we begin with a very interesting statement. Let's hear what he has to say. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in thy law. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. All right, now who's he talking about here in verse 70 when he says their heart? Well, you go back up there to verse 69, which is right before it. The proud forged a lie against the psalmist. And he says in verse 70, their heart is as fat as grease. What exactly does that mean? We understand fat is grease, right? Understand the imagery, but in the psalmist's mind, what is he talking about? Well, we know he identifies his people as the proud. So when we have this next identifier, this next description of them, fat as grease, we can tell then that these people are proud because of what they have. They are proud of the vanity of their success. They're fat because they have things. They have cattle, they have sheep, they have homes, they have family, they have possessions, they have finances, whatever they have. They're proud of that. And so their heart is fat with that, but it's not a good thing for them because they're depending on something that is completely foreign to faith. You see, because he says here, their heart is as fat as grease, they're delighting in that. That's why they're proud. He says, but I delight in your law. There's a difference. You see, the proud are rejoicing in their worldly success, and the believer rejoices in God's revelation. That's where we find our joy and our delight, because we know that everything that's in the world, is just vain. It's all vanity. There's nothing to it. And so he says they have their heart fat as grease, but I delight in thy law. Now, before I run out of time, I need to run on to verse 71, because you'll notice that he says, it is good for me that I have been afflicted. Have you ever said that? No, I don't think I have either. But notice the psalmist says it. And of course it just fits, doesn't it? Everything that he's taught us so far. Before I was afflicted, I went astray. Now I keep thy word. That was verse 67. In verse 68, he said, you are good and you do us good. So he doesn't blame God for his affliction. He says God has done good. In verse 65, he tells us he's done well with treating the psalmist. And now he says it's good for me that I have been afflicted. So he looks back on the situation, whatever the situation is, whatever his affliction, however he's framing it in his own mind. He looks back on it and he says, this is good for me. Yeah, what a marvelous statement of faith that is. He sees grace in affliction. And of course he does, because he attributes it to God's good hand in his life. And he says, I might learn thy statutes, which is the prayer answered. Remember, he said, teach me good judgment and knowledge. And then he comes here in verse 71 and he says, that I might learn thy statutes. Affliction has a teaching function for every believer. We don't like it. We don't like when we're disciplined by the Father, and we don't like it when affliction comes to our life, but he uses that to reign in our hearts, to teach us, and to give us good judgment and understanding. Well, join me again tomorrow, and we will look at verse 72 as we close out the week on Daily Dose Radio.
Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.